Senator McCain will lie in state at the Arizona Capitol, then at the Capitol Rotunda. His memorial service will be held at the National Cathedral right here in Washington, D.C. Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama will be the eulogists. Overnight, President Bush released a statement saying, in part, "Some lives are so vivid, it is difficult to imagine them ended. Some voices are so vibrant, it is hard to think of them still." What a great way to put it. President Obama released a statement saying, "John McCain and I were members of different generations, but we shared for all our differences a fidelity to something higher, the ideals for which generations of Americans and immigrants alike have fought, marched, and sacrificed." McCain will be buried at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Let me bring the panel in right now. Joshua Johnson, host of 1A and NPR, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today, Susan Page, NBC News Chief, White House correspondent Hallie Jackson, and David Brody, the Chief Political Analyst and reporter for the Christian Broadcasting Network. Look, I want you guys to share, but I want to share a moment of John McCain in 2000 regretting standing up for the Confederate flag in South Carolina. This is 2000, 15 years before the debate got back. Here he is.
They fought on the wrong side of American history. That, my friends, is how I personally feel about the Confederate battle flag. That is the honest answer I never gave to a fair question.
Susan Page, what does that say about him?
It's a reminder that John McCain was not a perfect person, that he made mistakes in his life and in his political life, but he would come around and admit it and apologize for it. And, you know, he did this with reporters. There were times when he unfairly criticized reporters for stories they'd written. And then 2 days later, he would call you back and say, "I was wrong, you were fair." Who does that?
I know. I know.
As somebody who covers the White House, I do think there is. As you talk about the timing of this, Chuck, and the moment that we're in, I can't help but look at the reaction and the response to the death of John McCain and sort of those moments over the last 8 years or so between President Trump, who was then a candidate, and McCain. Look back to 2008 when the birther movement was beginning against Barack Obama. Senator McCain came out and talked about his Christian... No, ma'am. You remember that moment in 2008. A movement, by the way, that Donald Trump was pushing as part of a conspiracy theory years later. You then had, after the war hero comments, when Donald Trump said John McCain is not a war hero early on in his campaign. Remember, the RNC came out and condemned Donald Trump. It was about the first and only time that the Republican establishment did that. You look at what's happened over the last year. As John McCain is convalescing in Arizona, President Trump has not mentioned McCain by name, but he has attacked him for his health care vote. You have not heard that same kind of condemnation at all from establishment Republicans. And it seemed people on Capitol Hill, for example, as well. And the way it is a contrast between the way that you look at how Republicans have shifted, I think. It's like a microcosm of how Republicans have shifted over the years when it comes to that relationship.
He is a statesman living in a political environment where statesman is a bad word right now. And that's part of the problem here. I've interviewed him a half dozen times. I remember in 2007 on the Straight Talk Express bus in New Hampshire, and I'll never forget the mischievous twinkle in his eye. And we all know that look of kind of like, look, this is the maverick in me, and he had it every single time. You know, but I think he sometimes, I know he didn't go along with GOP orthodoxy a lot, but I have to tell you, I mean, look, on judges, on Islam, you can go down the list. I mean, he was pretty solid on a lot of stuff, but the truth of the matter is if he hadn't bucked his party so much, he may have been president of the United States.
I rode over here this morning with a driver who drove John McCain to meet the press quite a bit. Yeah. And as I was getting out of the car, he was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember him. He was a really nice guy." Told me that he used to ride in the front of the car instead of in the back, so he would sit next to the driver, always called the driver soldier or called him by his first name. It just kind of was very, very warm about remembering his affability, even though the driver said his politics and Senator McCain's politics differed. And as I got out of the car, I thought, oh, it was really nice that he shared those stories. And then I thought, wait a minute, what is my driver's name? I didn't even ask. Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And I feel like part of the legacy of Senator McCain was not just his patriotism, but his humanity. Even that speech that Senator Clinton, or the former Secretary Clinton, referenced about ignoring all the bombastic loudmouths was about remembering the humanity of the people across the aisle from you. And if anything speaks to why this nation does not like Congress, trust Congress, support Congress, I think part of it speaks to that ability for us to just view one another as people who are trying to build a more perfect union.
You got to something, and I said it in a very blunt way earlier. People asked me, what's something? The guy wasn't a snob. Do you know how many political reporters I know, including this one right here, who's the first person to acknowledge them when they were on Capitol Hill to take them seriously as a reporter, not to just look for the recognizable TV face, no offense to any of us now on TV. He wasn't a snob, whether it was a driver. That was an incredible aspect of him.
I think people who go through enormous times of testing, as he did as a prisoner of war, they sometimes come out with a sense of what matters and what doesn't, which he had, and also a sense of gratitude for every day. And I think he came out of Vietnam understanding that every day was a little bit of a gift and something to be used to a higher purpose. A higher purpose is one of the things that John McCain repeatedly talked about to everybody, to other members of Congress, to members of the press. I mean, I think he thought all of us should have a higher purpose.
He thought we were all had a stake in keeping the democracy healthy.
Yeah, and I remember him being very happy-go-lucky on that bus in Manchester. In 2007, he was the front runner for a while, then he had dropped off, obviously, and it was the time when he had dropped off and no one was giving him a shot. He eventually rebounded.
Carried his own bags.
That's correct. And I'll never forget it. And he looked at me, look, I've been a POW for 4.5 years. This is nothing, you know. And so he knows, and it was very happy-go-lucky warrior spirit.
Yeah. He was always very funny and friendly with reporters, even when he was being crusty and cranky, right? That was part of his shtick, was to come up and
he'd call you, hey, you scumbag reporter,
exactly.
But he'd laugh.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, like I think every reporter was called a name by him. Yeah. But it was always with a smile.
Yeah, he gave bunny ears to a reporter live on the air one time. You know, there's a lot of moments that people who covered John McCain remember fondly.
Yeah. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.